Good afternoon, judges, students, and all present today. I'm very delighted that all of you have made it to this first ever virtual debating competition at Brookhouse. As we all know, change and crisis can be very difficult to deal with, but that gives us an opportunity to be able to be innovative, creative, hence our being here to debate on this platform today. And now I just want to say thank you also to the judges, Mr. O'Connor, our director, Mrs. Mwangi, our deputy director, and Mr. Ian Bugwa, our drama teacher, for accepting to join us to adjudicate this debate final. I will now hand over to our chairperson for this afternoon, Brianna Kome, who will take us through the final debate, which is between Mara House and Savo House. Over to you, Brianna.
Good afternoon, adjudicators, debaters, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final of the Inter-House Debating Competition for 2020. The motion before us today reads that sports have become more about financial gain than true sportsmanship. Proposing the motion is Savo House, represented by August Sean, Shakina Mutulili, and Kobina Owusu. Opposing the motion is Mara House, represented by John Wigai, Shanice Mbogori, and Daksh Segal. Before we commence the debate, please allow me to outline briefly our debating procedures. Each speaker will have a standard period of 2 minutes to present their arguments, at which time I will sound the gavel once. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I will sound the gavel twice. And at 3 minutes, I will sound the gavel 3 times and require the speaker to conclude immediately. The adjudicating panel will award points to speakers for both content and delivery of their presentations. After both teams have concluded their arguments, we will give the panel of judges a short period to tally their scores. I now call upon the first speaker from Savo, August Sean, proposing the motion to open this debate.
Good afternoon, adjudicators and our worthy opponents. Today I stand before you to express the motion that sports have become more about financial gain than true sportsmanship. Sports are any activity that involves the physical exertion and skill of an individual or team who compete against another or others. Primarily, this not only applies to the players, but also to those who actively support sports as a whole, be it the various fans, sports agencies that invest in the players, and as well the betting firms. Financial gain is any profit or monetary benefit earned from performing an activity, whilst in general, sportsmanship refers to the virtues such as fairness, courage, self-control, and persistence. This has been associated with the interpersonal concepts of being treated fairly, maintaining self-control if dealing with others, and respect for both authority and opponents. Sportsmanship is also looked at as being the way one reacts to the sport, game, or player. Now, don't get us twisted. We're not stating that sportsmanship is only about financial gain. No. We simply believe that the phrase "have become" in the motion is key due to the fact that it talks of a shift in priorities. If the word "is" had been used in its place, it would insist that true sportsmanship does not even exist in first place. This, my worthy opponents, is further signified by the word "more." If sports were about sportsmanship, professional sports wouldn't exist. Athletes would be content playing at an amateur level for love and respect for the game. Subsequently, if sports was not about money, the best athletes produced across the globe would play for their hometown team and revel at the thought of displaying great sportsmanship. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you've heard of the phrase, "God made man, man made money, money made man mad." Well, sports is no stranger to this ideology. Let's take a look at Sepp Blatter, the head of world governing body FIFA, who in his 17th year reign ended in ignominy after the body's ethics committee banned him for 8 years. According to BBC, he was banned for signing a contract unfavorable to football's governing body and making disloyal payments to UEFA's president, Michael Platini. This proves that even the most respected people can fall short for the evils of money. Today's sporting culture places great importance on the idea of competition and winning for monetary gain, and thus sportsmanship takes a back seat. Colleges in the US will not be engaging in illegal recruiting tactics, specifically paying prospects. These colleges are doing this simply because it brings in billions of dollars in revenue and hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. Ultimately, athletes have become too self-centered. Therefore, we believe their drive for financial gain has become like a cancer, killing the minds of sportsmen and draining them for their moral values. Thank you.
I now call upon the second speaker from Mara House, John Muigai. You have the floor.
I promise that we shall take part in these Olympic Games, respecting and abiding by the rules which govern them, committing ourselves to a sport in the true spirit of sportsmanship. This is the Olympic oath, an oath to an event which is widely regarded as the epitome of sports and sportsmanship. It clearly outlines all the important values of sport. But did we hear anything regarding financial gain? When a competitor stands on that podium, the emotions are overwhelming and the tears are unstoppable. It is a moment that cannot be equated to any amount of money. And so who are we to say that all this passion derives only from financial gain? Sport is defined as an athletic activity that involves a degree of competition. More refers to an increase in something. Financial gain is when one obtains monetary benefits, and true sportsmanship is the ethical, polite, and fair behavior of a participant in a sporting event. And so the motion my worthy opponents are affirming here today suggests that sports have become more about monetary benefits than values such as respect. They will attempt to delude you with the fallacious statement that all sports have succumbed to commercialization and they disregard the principles that make the sport in the first place. My team and I are not unaware of the fact that there is indeed some aspect of monetary gain in sports. But instead, we disagree with the notion that that aspect of financial gain has come to define sports more than the virtues that coincide with sportsmanship. Of course, financial gain could be an incentive for one to aspire to be a sportsman, but in saying that it has become the very premise of sports itself is blatantly erroneous. Professional sumo wrestlers earn just under $8,990 per year. A footballer in the Arsenal club earns $5.99 million per season. And so if the proposing team stance is indeed correct, then why does the sumo wrestler continue to enter the ring instead of being on the pitch where they would be earning much more? This is because the passion and respect for a sport will, in most cases, outshine and trounce the lust for financial gain. Hence why true sportsmanship is the very foundation of a sport and not the money that comes with it. In the end, he doesn't enter the ring because he's earning millions, but because judges, though financial gain may be a result of sport, the very fabric of it will always be sportsmanship. This is best captured in the words of the late basketball legend, Kobe Bryant. The mindset isn't about seeking a result. It's more about the process of getting to that result. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon the second speaker from Savo House, Shakina Mutulili. You have the floor.
Sportsmanship does not occur in isolation. It occurs in an ecosystem of sport that consists of many actors with vested interests. Therefore, sportsmanship is not only a behavior, but a culture. Decades ago, athletes being sponsored to play professional sports was absurd. Now, behind elite athletes is a corporate brand. Unequivocally, the sports world is a whole industry that goes beyond the notion of games themselves. From figurines to fashion, television, nutrition, it's a giant feeding value chains. Hence, how can one believe that true sportsmanship is on the front line of a mammoth industry? Isn't it peculiar that the athletes we call GOATs, greatest of all time, are listed as the highest paid? True sportsmanship is anchored in the four ideals: winning, fairness, ethics, respect. Yet sports culture emphasizes winning. Fall to no illusion. Sportsmen become elite due to a track record of winning, which translates into dividends for various stakeholders and a hefty paycheck for themselves. Financial gain takes the podium, while true sportsmanship takes a back seat. Even sportsmen acknowledge money's superiority. Lewis Hamilton, Formula One world champion 6 times, remarked, "We're at a place where you've got some teams. Rather than take an upcoming kid, they'll take whoever's got the money." Money before country, the eye-catching headline of a Kenyan newspaper. Surely one cannot be convinced that true sportsmanship reigns over financial gain, with athletes even going to the extent of changing nationality, which the British Telegraph called a disgraceful farce. Judges, take for instance Taekwondo Olympic athlete Aaron Cook, who competed in the Olympic Games for Great Britain, and another for Moldova. Fair, is it? Sports gambling, a $3 trillion industry. The United States annually has $150 billion wagered illegally. So it was no revelation when it was legalized in 2018. New York Times Magazine remarked, "It is now difficult to find anyone inside sports who opposes gambling because the leagues and investors see how much they stand to gain. Undoubtedly, sports gambling leads to match fixing. From 1977 to 2018, Louisville, baseball, NBA, Italian dirty football, and Sri Lankan cricket, a history of gambling scandals and match fixing. Like draining blood from a stone, my opponents seek to defend the impossible. In the words of one of the greatest boxers of his time, Floyd Mayweather Jr., I don't fight for legacy. I don't fight for none of that. I fight for that check. I'm in the check cashing business." Thank you.
I now call upon the second speaker, Shanice Mbogori from Mara House. You have the floor.
Don't think money does everything, or you're going to end up doing everything for money. Voltaire. Judges. To declare that sports have become more about financial gain than true sportsmanship is nothing but a preposterous notion. Do not allow yourselves to be eluded by our opponents' examples of the minuscule number of athletes who have put financial gain above true sportsmanship. For our opponents to state that because of this small percentage, the statement suddenly becomes the truth is ludicrous. Our very own school patron, Henry Wanyoike, is proof that this motion is flawed. He began racing to send a message of ethics, morals, and tenacity above all things to the disabled youth of Kenya. Mr. Wanyoike has sought to help other blind people by teaching them to become self-sufficient through his foundation. Judges. If he indeed became involved in sports more for the financial gain, would he have bothered to reach out to others? For our opponents to boldly claim that sports have become more about financial gain than true sportsmanship in all facets of the world of sports is to push an ideology that is untrue. Allow me to remind us all this afternoon that sports are not only played at a professional level. Our schools teach children sports from the tender age of 2 years old to purely instill the values that come with it, such as teamwork and patience, not financial gain. So how can our opponents valiantly assert that sports have become more about financial gain when the majority of athletes, which includes us, do not receive any monetary gain from the sports we play? Kenyan runner Abel Mutai was leading the cross-country race at an event in Bulada Naver in December 2012 when he mistakenly thought he'd crossed the finish line. Spanish runner Ivan Anya had the opportunity to grab the gold, but he didn't. Instead, he caught up to Mutai, gesturing for him to keep going. Mr. Anya chose honesty over financial gain. Cheprot, a Kenyan runner, rescued his colleague Kip Kemoy across the finish line, in the process losing his place as a top contender. Our opponents. If these incidents do not display that sports has not become more about financial gain than true sportsmanship, I don't know what does. Judges. Prominent billionaire Henry Kravis once said, "If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. You can't buy it. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not a moral and ethical person, you have nothing." Hence, as a society, we cannot place finances on a pedestal that is above our morals. Thank you.
I now call upon the third and final speaker, Kobina Owusu from Savo House, to conclude the affirmative argument.
Thank you. Our worthy opponents have carefully cherry-picked certain examples within the sporting world and have tried their very best to convince you that sports are more about true sportsmanship than financial gain. Now, I would like to begin by affirming the words of our first speaker: you shouldn't get us wrong. Sportsmanship obviously does exist in sports, but we are arguing that the aspect of financial gain has become more prominent and has plagued bona fide sportsmanship. The first speaker mentioned examples such as sumo wrestling, the Olympic oath, and the legend Kobe Bryant. First of all, we believe that oath proves nothing, as presidents swear oaths and still become corrupt. Nevertheless, audience, those few examples are outliers in the sporting industry today. They are simply saints inside a burning church. And no, we are not painting the sporting world with a white brush. Don't allow our worthy opponents to use these people to change the wide perspective of what sports have become. To repeat the words of our second speaker, sports are an ecosystem. Now, the second speaker was incorrect in saying that there is a small percentage of athletes who place money before financial gain. Judges, think about it. Financial scandal after financial scandal after financial scandal in almost every single sporting industry on the planet, and yet our worthy opponents are still hell-bent on such a ludicrous standpoint. The first speaker insinuated that having sportsmanship-like practices proves sportsmanship acts as a main motivator in sports. Our worthy opponents a point of correction and take time to really think about it. Athletes can cry on the podium after they've won. I mean, it's simple enough, right? But what happens when you take away his or her paycheck? They'll be at home like us, but it won't be because of a mandatory quarantine. They'll strike for as long as it takes to get their financial compensation, because that is just what sports have become. This is proven by a case that happened at Syracuse University. Student athletes refused to play the final 4 games of the NCAA tournament because they felt they weren't being paid enough. Again, financial gain supersedes appropriate behavior in the sporting world. The second speaker brought forth the idea that athletes still engage in good endeavors, such as charity involvement, as seen by Henry Wanyueke, and therefore money is not their main motive. But let's ask a potent question. Would athletes still do these things if they were earning significantly less? I mean, Ronaldo and Messi are earning 8-figure salaries, and no, I'm not talking about Kenyan shillings. They've already surpassed the status quo. They're more than free to give, as their financial wants have already been met. The second speaker suggested that events such as inter-house and inter-school competitions show that sports are more than financial gain. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget that folk like us are not blessed with million-dollar sporting contracts. There's nothing at stake, so don't let our worthy opponents fool you into believing that such examples allow a fair comparison. Also, wouldn't I be right in saying that people who aren't professionals train with their motivation being that large check at the end of the road? Ladies and gentlemen, be not mistaken. In a utopian world, athletes and managers who truly play for the love of the game. But sadly, that is not where we are today. Sports have become more about financial gain than true sportsmanship. Thank you.
I now call upon the third and final speaker from Mara House, Daksh Sagal, to conclude this debate.
Saints inside a burning church. That was the poignant line used by the opposing third speaker. But in focusing on the church, they have forgotten about the village. Our proposition today has chosen to focus on professional sports. They mentioned sports gambling, rising salaries, and more ambiguous college scouts. But judges, that is but a small minority of sports. The majority of sports are not played in stadiums or courses, but rather in backyards and elementary school fields. The average sports person is not Lance Armstrong, but rather a person like me and you. The opposing first speaker claimed that athletes simply wouldn't try without monetary incentive. The opposing speakers have all represented Brookhouse in sports in some capacity. Judges, why don't you ask them if they were paid for their efforts? And if, regardless of the lack of monetary gain, they didn't try and play to the very best of their abilities. The proposition gave many examples of people and sporting bodies who chose money over ethics or loyalty or goodwill, such as Sepp Blatter or Floyd Mayweather. Similarly, our team has presented several examples of people exemplifying sportsmanship. The difference is, financial scandals, while they do exist, are relatively rare. But sportsmanship is as common as sport itself. You can see it in the compulsory shaking of hands before teams play football, or even just in the smiles shared between teammates. Financial matters rarely accompany sports, but sportsmanship almost always does. The opposing second speaker talked of the increased levels of advertising, sponsorships, and merchandising in sport in recent years. But judges, we must ask, which company would sponsor an athlete or team that is disrespectful or unethical? When Tiger Woods was arrested in 2017 for driving under the influence, he lost sponsorship deals worth $150 million. Money matters can never overpower ethics or goodwill in sport because it is sportsmanship itself that begets financial gain. The opposing second speaker told us about people who had relocated from their countries due to higher pay found elsewhere. But this problem is not inherent to sport. You can see it in any profession. After all, it is only human nature to seek greener pastures. Then judges, is it not cruel to blame sport for what is essentially a human defect? Ask yourself this: if all of them are driven by the pursuit of riches, then why aren't the rest of them doing it? Why is it such a small fraction that chooses financial gain? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about the implications of saying that sports is more about financial gain. That the role models we have looked up to, such as Eliud Kipchoge, were motivated not by pushing the boundaries of the human body, but rather increasing their bank balances. That every ball has been kicked or thrown not with the intention of helping the team, but rather securing a future paycheck. Judges, if we allow ourselves to believe that an activity as innocent and widely practiced as sport is motivated primarily by greed, a cardinal sin, then God help us all. Thank you.
I would now like to hand over this afternoon's proceedings to the adjudicating panel for the verdict on today's debate.
Okay, so first up, very well done to all 6 debaters. We enjoyed your presentations enormously. You all spoke very, very well, and it was a very tight debate in terms of the judges' assessment of each of the speakers. So I'll go through each one of you individually, then sum up a few comments and let you know the outcome. August Sean, good definition of the topic to start with. You led into the FIFA example of corruption of management leadership in sport. You have a very earnest style of delivery, and you finished with a very emotive, strong language, cancer killing the minds of sportsmen. That's powerful imagery. I thought you presented very, very well, and you opened the debate in a really strong way. So congratulations, very good start.
Thank you, sir.
Then we had John come in and do his presentation. John, you also have a forceful style. bit of a TV presenter style. You adapted very well to the Zoom format of today's debate. You played very well to the camera. I liked the sumo wrestler versus pro footballer example that you gave. That's a good example because it conjures up imagery in the mind of the audience. Yeah. You used lots of emotive language, which was very good. And the Kobe Bryant quote, process versus result, was really apt. I thought you gave an excellent account of yourself and a very good start for Mara House debate. So well done.
Thank you, sir.
Shakina, very imposing style. You perhaps for the format of a Zoom presentation, the volume could be varied a little bit. It was very strong, but very, very good, articulate, intelligent debate. I liked the Lewis Hamilton quote and the way you emphasized money. The athletes changing nationality as proof of their financial motive was a good and well presented argument. And then you spent some time covering the whole sports betting industry and the corruption of fixed matches, all of which was very, very well presented. And is the guy's name Floyd Mayweather? Okay, good quote at the end about the check. So I thought you gave a very polished debating presentation. Well done, Shakina.
Thank you, sir.
Shanice, it's always good when someone starts with a Voltaire quote, so well done on that. And the Henry Wanyoike example of altruistic sportsmanship, very, very well presented, I thought. You're very good, Shanice, at presenting anecdotes, short stories that convey the point you're trying to make in your argument. They're very, very good. And you had a number of them related to selfless sporting heroes. Your argument was clear, erudite, and very professionally presented. Well done, Shanice.
Thank you, sir.
And then we had Kobe. Now, Kobe made a very good point in that all debating speeches cherry pick the points you want to make that suit your team's argument. But it's good to hear someone point out that their opposition were cherry picking. And that's a key point to make. Very strong rebuttal. I like the way you presented sport as a financial ecosystem plagued with scandal. Your speech was eloquent and confident. The Syracuse anecdote was well handled. You have a good sense of humor in the way you present your debate. Your rebuttal style is very direct. You hone in on the opposition's point and then dissect it point by point. That's very effective rebuttal. And another person who's got that TV presenter style in the way he handled the debate. So an excellent finish for Savo House. Well done, Kobe. And then Dutch finished the whole debate very strongly. He did something that is very effective in debating. Use your opponent's analogy to attack your opponents. So he took up the church and then talked about the village. Very strong rebuttal. Another TV presenter. You've got the rhythm of a TV presenter in the way you speak. Very focused rebuttal. Again, I don't think we've seen this that often. Both of you, Kobe and Dutch, very good at dissecting point by point the opposition's argument. You were articulate and confident, and who can argue with someone who finishes their debate with "God help us all"? So very good debate, Dutch. Very well done.
Thank you, sir.
Now, generally, we always have to look at the wording of a topic. So this one actually had two interesting pieces to the topic, and you all pointed out both of them. One was the word more, so which is it? This one more or that one more? You got that more was a key word. And you also picked up that there was another little twist to the wording of the topic, have become more. In other words, focusing on the notion of an emerging trend, a developing trend. And you picked up both those aspects of the wording of the topic. Now that's really smart debating. So you did very well with that. On the other hand, there was one very obvious point that I was waiting to hear from at least three of you, which would have been Mara's team, and that is that, not this year, but normally every 4 years we gather for the Olympics, an example of where very high paid sportsmen and women choose to forego their money to still compete in the Olympics for, I guess, the pride of representing their country, the sense of an honourable sporting competition, and the glory of winning without any financial gain. Would have been a very strong point, didn't really emerge as strong. It was sort of slightly touched upon, but only slightly. Dutch muddied the waters slightly at the end of the debate by cleverly pointing out, and you can do this in debating, if the words are the words, then you can do this. The debate didn't say that professional sport has become more about. It just said sport in general. So all sport could be brought into the debate. On the other hand, so it's a pity for you, Kobe, that Dutch was the last speaker, because you could have retorted and said, well, if the debate topic, yes, it doesn't specify professional sport, but in the general world of sport, where there's no payment anyway, the topic would become a moot point, wouldn't it? Saying, I don't get paid because there's no money on offer, therefore it's sportsmanship, it would have become a moot point. So it was good of Dutch to raise it. He was clever because he did it as the final speaker when no one else can say anything. But it's actually an example of where there's an implied boundary to the topic rather than a stated one. Does everyone get what I'm saying there? Okay. What you really want to hear me say, though, is who won. All three unanimous judges in this debate. Same as the last debate, we were unanimous in that one too. In this instance, the motion was defeated and Mara won by the narrowest of margins. So congratulations to Mara House. But in this instance, I think all 6 speakers gave such a strong account of themselves that you can be very proud of such a fantastic virtual debate performance. And I'll hand it back now to Mrs. Matahana to close off this virtual debate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. O'Connor, and the judges this afternoon. The feedback is detailed and I'm sure goes a long way, as always, in making our debaters better. So thank you very much. And well done. No, congratulations to Mara House. That was a very good debate from everybody. And congratulations to Mara House. Well done, Savo. You definitely, as you've already heard, gave in some very good points. All of you have given an excellent account of yourselves, given even the time you had to prepare for this debate, and you have made us proud. Now we know virtual debating can actually happen. And so give a pat on the back to yourselves, and I just wish you all the best as you move forward. And at this point, I also want to say thank you to all that made it onto this platform, and we look forward to more opportunities.